Well, hello, Substack and YouTube Live. Um, it's about 12:15 in the morning here in Oklahoma, but I just finished putting together some stuff on a new program that I've been working on really hard for the last few years, and we finally got it to the point where I think I can just put it out there and people can use it, which will be really nice. Um, for a long time, I've been concerned about leadership and the decline of leadership, not just in our country, but a lot in our country and all over the world for that matter. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of strife, a lot of frustration going on in the world, but particularly in the United States, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I think we're going to deal with it in the end, but I don't. I want to talk about just generally the ability to connect with other people effectively, to get a deeper sense of connection, which I think is an underlying problem in leadership for sure, but and that's led to some issues with employee satisfaction with leadership, employee satisfaction with organization, the back and forth fights between organization and employees, employee engagement, the amount of commitment they have to a company is dissolved over the 50 years I've been in the business. So I this last 10 years been doing a lot of research, but the last couple of years it's been kind of solidifying, and I think I found at least some of a source that can help. And it's so I wanted to just talk about what I've done, and then you guys can use it or not use it. It's up to you. At my age, I think about 3 weeks I turn 80, and I'm not really looking to start another business. Um, yes, I'm charging for what I'm about to tell you about, but I've tried to set it up so you don't have to incur large additional ongoing fees. It seems like everything is a subscription, everything is an ongoing, continually compounding fee of some sort or the other to everybody who wants a little bit of help. So let me just kind of pop this up here. This is called the RCLO. It's the Renaissance Communication Leadership Odyssey uh, Communication Program. I've been trying to struggle with what to call it. I don't want to call it leadership development because it is that, but it's a lot more than that. Um, it's not really development. It's literally a transformation process that I think can change the whole concept about leadership and its role, its paradigm. You followed me at all, you know I have a book out there called Renaissance Leadership Odyssey, and it's called that because the Renaissance, I think, was in the 1600s on into the 1700s, 16th, 17th century. Maybe I think century might be a better way to put it. And during that time, so we had a lot of innovation, a lot of change, a lot of dynamics going on that were challenging existing norms. And so uh, that seems to be how I feel about where we are now. We're challenging a lot of the norms. There's a lot of change, a lot of new stuff coming out, a lot of new science, a lot of new in the arts, and a lot new in society in general and how we look at things. So that's quite challenging for most people. A lot of different dynamics going on, and that makes for a different kind of world, a tougher world to communicate in. So it's as I looked at what was causing an underlying pain, I've looked at a lot of what seemed to have been issues or problems. And it came down to, from a leadership perspective, it came down to engagement, employee engagement. Businesses start their business to provide a need that people have initially. And then as it scales up, it reaches a point where that need then became less important than how can I find money? And people then begin to focus on money versus that need. And then the company begins to lose a sense of purpose and frustration, and all kinds of toxic culture things set in. And it becomes difficult. And there are companies that were popular in the 50s and big, and you thought they would never go away, like Sears Roebuck, and it's not around anymore. And so that's what happens. They scale, they change purpose, they lose a sense of what they were in business for. It becomes about money. Then money starts moving in different directions, like Sears Roebuck was. Amazon began to creep in here and overcome that, and something will come in and overcome Amazon, because Amazon's not as focused on its original purpose that it was designed for. It's more focused on money and innovation now, and going to the moon or Mars or wherever, beating Elon Musk there. It's a competition between extreme billionaires, so that's kind of strange. Now, what most people don't recognize, for example, in the United States, 95% of the businesses in the United States are small businesses. They're the mom and pop business on Main Street. I lived in a small town, Brighton, Michigan, and it was like a cross section of two highways, and the town was built around that, so to speak, and everything was within a quarter of a mile either way on either side of those highways. But there was a lot of stuff there. There were some really cool and unique shops, and a really nice coffee house that had entertainment, and was a central hub for kind of collecting, for people to collect and sit down and talk about things over coffee. Gosh, I wish we don't do that much anymore. Maybe they do in Brighton. Yeah, I know, like on Saturdays in the summer, from late spring to early fall or mid fall, they shut down Main Street, which is only about 4 or 5 blocks on either side of the intersection. They shut that down, and people are free to just roam around, and people bring their wares into the street, and they bring things in for the kids, and it's like a big block party. And you don't see that in America, in downtown Oklahoma City or Atlanta or San Francisco or places like that. But there's still that sense of that kind of smaller community. And I try to remind people that that's the vast majority of where businesses are. There, that restaurant, there, that pub, there's the small shop, the candle shop, the candy shop, the coffee house, balloons, place to do balloons and lollipops, handmade lollipops, and ice cream shop, and I could go on and on and on. All the shops on main streets of America, and these are people who hire people and generate revenue, in America, and a large part of it. But they're also the people who can't afford to hire a Vic Vogel to come in and do consulting for them. As as a consultant, I normally worked with billion-dollar domestic and international corporations, and when I was brought in, it was to help change a dynamic, a cultural shift, an acquisition, a divestiture, a toxic culture, a varying change in product, whatever that might be, that it was causing a change between the leadership and the relationship of that organization. I was a culture change expert. Uh, and we spent a lot of time. So when I went in, I was a consultant. We didn't have what they call coaches today. Okay, coaches are like what I'm doing now, but you may be on the other side and I may be talking to you for an hour and then we're done. But consulting was a little different in those days. We spent a lot of time uh, in the organization itself, next to the leader, while they were working through the changes that we were trying to help them understand and grow. We were considered experts in our fields. Coaches are a little different in that they're not necessarily experts. They're there to try to get people to self-discover who they are and the better parts of who they are, and then become better at what they do that way. We actually went in and said, "Hey, look, we've been in this field for years, and we are experts in the field that we're in, culture change or change in environment. And here's some of the things you have to do to kind of make that happen effectively." So uh, that's a little bit different. And when you started adding up the fees, so we also didn't have remote. We went to the place. So that I would fly somewhere. I had the cost of the airplane there and back. I had the hotel room. I had the meals, um, transportation. You scoped a project. You added all that into the cost. So plus your hourly rate. And my hourly rate might be anywhere, and it kind of depends on the project. Eventually got away from hourly rate and just simply went to a project and said, "Here's the cost of the project." It's a little allows you a little more flexibility, but if you were talking about an hourly rate, they were anywhere from $300 to $500 an hour, and I was there 8 hours a day, so uh, it's $2,400 a day times 5 days. That's $10,000 a week. Times four is $40,000 a month. And I wasn't the only consultant there. So you can see how those prices begin to mount up into the hundreds of thousands, and in one particular case, a full corporate change I managed, it was into the millions. So, but these people had that money. These companies had that money, and they knew that they had to change this particular image. So, but that is not what 95% of America can afford. That small business person, that candle shop owner, the bookstore, the small, collection bookstore, not the chain stores, but the small stores, have used books and things like that, or the secondhand clothing shop or whatever it is. They're not into spending a lot of money. Now, maybe they have themselves and two other people, and one of those people is a family member. So managing and making that happen is not too long. But there are people who might start a restaurant, and happens to be good food and it happens to be a good location. And the next thing you know, they have 2 restaurants and 3 restaurants and 5 restaurants. And all of a sudden, you've got a couple hundred employees over 5 restaurants. And, you are trying to manage all of those 5 and do what's necessary to continue to provide the quality and service that you wanted in your restaurants. And you have managers and supervisors managing other people. So all of a sudden you're in the leadership business, but all the time you were building those 5 restaurants, you didn't have time to understand what leadership was all about. And so you run into this frustration where you bump into conflict and other things that go on, and you don't quite understand how to handle those. And you're still, even at 5 restaurants, you may be making hundreds of thousands or even maybe topping that $1 million mark almost. That's still not a lot of money when you back out, from a percentage perspective, a profit percentage perspective. You don't have the millions and the hundreds of thousands or the millions of dollars to bring somebody in to train all of your leadership over those 5 companies. So you just struggle through and you continue to go along that route until it becomes such a problem that you do have to bring somebody in or someone. And today, people are talking about that being coaching. I mean, you can do it remotely and you don't have all the costs of coming there, which cuts the cost of a consulting project down quite a bit. It used to be a large portion of that was expense of getting there and getting back. The other aspect of that was coaches could spend time like we're doing right now across the airway. We might, there might be some people who are kind of communicating, and if there was somebody watching this, well, I didn't anticipate anybody watching it at midnight. But if there was somebody watching it, you could see what their comments were. They could ask a question, you could respond to it on the air. These things are kinds of different ways of reaching people, but they're also ways that begin to interrupt the core value of communication, which is what goes on when 2 people interact with each other. When you're not there and you're trying to have that interaction, there are a lot of dynamics at play that I've found are getting in the way of leaders connecting with their employees. And that's what I found out was over my 10 years of research and digging into literature and talking to thousands of people, gosh, all over the country. I had a chance over that 10 years to be in several parts of the country and talking with people, talking with the people who own businesses, people who were leaders in businesses. Like when I was in Michigan, there was a lot of automotive industry people I talked to, for example, and you begin to realize there's secondary, tertiary, and on down, all the people that are supported by that industry that are smaller businesses. Talking with them in terms of their interface with the companies that they worked or they sold products to, all of those dynamics, it came clear to me that the single most important thing that makes all of that click well is how well we communicate with each other. But more importantly, I begin to draw the sense that we're doing it with the increase in social media and internet and video conferencing, things like we're doing now, live conferencing. I began to realize that what was happening is we were reaching a lot more people. So you could you could have an idea about leadership, a dynamic, or something that you wanted people to know and share with them. And you could reach a lot more people, and you were talking to a lot more people. The dilemma was, and still is, you don't necessarily connect with the people. Even when you are, I was watching a show between two people on Substack today that where they were talking with each other, and they were, they were sharing stuff, and you could tell they enjoyed talking to each other. But the reality is, they didn't really derive any solutions to anything. They didn't come to any kind of conclusion about the connection, identifying the connection. It was hard to sense whether they were attuned to each other in a real positive way, because when you're not connecting with each other, when you're not close, when you're not in the same proximity to each other, you're not having the same body responses, mind body responses that you are when you are like we are doing now. This is what we call asynchronous. Some people see this and actually some people might see this a month from now, make a comment on. They may put a like up there, and I'll see that like, and I have to go back and look at what I did because I don't remember what they liked. Now that's not. You think about that. That's not really saying a whole lot. Somebody said they liked what I did. Great, that sounds great. I just don't know what they liked. I also don't know what they like about it or why they like it, what they thought it might do for them, or anything else that might be beneficial that could help me improve what I was doing. It was just a like. And I appreciate the likes. Trust me, I appreciate the likes, but I don't know what they mean a lot of times. So they're not doing a lot for us. And so this is what I was finding was a big problem with leaders and employees out there today. And we're struggling with this whole idea of doing a lot of talking to a lot more people in some cases, but we're not necessarily connecting. We're not getting deep enough into each other to where we're attuned with each other. Attunement means like a deep kind of connection where I can almost feel the same exact way you do. So when I'm teaching, a lot of times people teach feedback. They say you need to pay attention to what they're saying, and then you kind of want to, you want to say, now, if I'm hearing you right, this is what you were saying, and the person goes, yeah, and people are teaching this as if they're saying, that helps that person realize you're paying attention to them. So you're actively listening. It is so much more than that. Active listening is your opportunity to what I call attune with someone. Connect with them to the point where you sense that same emotion they do. If they're frustrated, you can become frustrated with them. Just talking to them, paying enough attention to them, watching their body reaction, it gets to the point where you feel that same kind of reaction. Now, what is really cool about the brain, and this gets into neuroscience, but and this is why you should study more about why things happen so that you can feel comfortable when they happen. You also have the same capacities, an aspect of your brain that while you're attuned and you are actually, you kind of feel that same sense of anger, your hormones are kind of connecting, if you will, parasympathetic, those things that cause the hormones, the rage and all that you don't have any control over really. but your nervous system and your brain is telling them to go to work. And it's like those two parasympathetic systems are integrating, they're uniting together. And that is when you are truly actively listening. But there's something different about it because your role in this discussion might be to try to help this person get to a certain point or to do something differently. And therefore, you can't, even though you're attuned to them and you're sensing their pain or their frustration or their anger, whatever you've kind of defined that emotion to be, you are able to, through your thought processes, communicate in ways, nonverbal cues. Nonverbal cues are voice also, but the difference is it's not the words, it's the pitch or the tone. Okay? The intensity, the veracity of the speech. If somebody is upset, for example, and you're sensing it and you feel upset with them, but you know they need to calm down, you begin, you know, the way you would calm yourself down because now you're feeling it and you're saying, I need to calm down. I need it. So what do? I take a deep breath. I take a pause in the conversation, and I talk slower and more purposeful, with not so much intensity in the voice, more of a caring, calming effect, but then also allowing those quiet pauses in between what we're talking about so that the person can kind of diffuse a little bit, but they can also reflect on what's being said. All of a sudden, that feedback, you're not just listening into feedback, you're regulating it. You're beginning to say, okay, now that I got you calmed down, let's really talk about what the issue is. And I've run into this so much where leaders don't sense they have the time to do this kind of stuff. You know, that's taken away from my time to do my job. That is your job. Your people are the ones that should be the experts in getting done what needs to be done. That's what you're paying them and hiring them for. Your job is to make sure that they're at that level they need to be to get it all done. They're doing the work. Your job is leading. You're the leader. Yes, you know about marketing. Yes, you probably came out of the marketing ranks. But now you're leading them. It becomes one of regulating and educating and resolving and the things that leaders tend to do in the process. So, where I found that was beginning to be a problem with leadership is led me down the path of why, and it was a matter of people really don't know how to connect with each other. They just don't know how to connect which led me to this program. So I was putting it together, and it was coming together in pieces. First came the information phases. I wrote books. I wrote e-textbooks. I call them e-textbooks. They're electronic books, and they're electronic for a reason because I can put links in them to other places. I can put a video in them. There's so many things you can do with an e-book that you can't do with a paperback book. Most people are not going to carry 4 paperback books in their purse or pocketbook or briefcase or whatever it is. And then refer to it when they have a particular situation. I have a difficult discussion I got to have. Now, what are the things I need to do? I need to identify, the steps, so to speak. You don't have to keep all that in your mind so much anymore. that you can reference it, and you can reference it on a digital library that's on your phone, everything. So all these ebooks I wrote are in PDF format, and they're on a platform that you can just get to that platform and then carry those PDF books with you anywhere you go. So if you have a particular situation, if it's a conflict situation and you want to, you're about to step into it, before you step into it, you want to refresh your memory about some things. So when you have in your mind, you don't have to be thinking about them, you can be applying them. But you want to take a few minutes to go through that real quick. You want to plan that meeting, so to speak, in a very brief period of time. You can actually go to your phone and take a few minutes over a cup of coffee and go through this. Put that, put the phone in your purse or in your pocket, and you can go in and actually start that session and go through those steps and resolve it fairly effectively. So that's the value of having the internet and having that information that goes there available to you. So that's where it began. It began, what is the volume of knowledge, the information and the knowledge and the stuff that people need to actually know to be able to connect better than they are currently connecting. They're talking to each other a lot. They're just not connecting. It's not, people aren't grasping it like they should be. Or they're purposely blocking it out because of the way you're saying it. I've heard that more times than you can count over 50 years of talking to tens of thousands of employees about their leaders. It isn't what he said or what she said, it's how they said it. And so what are you talking about? I mean, don't the words mean anything to you about what they said? Well, yeah, but I'm not sure they believed it. It didn't feel like they believed. And that's been where I began to realize many years ago, and of course my education taught me this too, 90% of what somebody attaches a meaning to, a message is sent to them, is in the nonverbal communication. But yet we cut that out today with text messages and emails and all this kind of stuff. There is no nonverbal. But people are used to 90% of the meaning being in that. For me to trust you, I have to see you when you tell me that. That's just who I am. It's how we've evolved over the time. And there's some science to it too. I mean, the only two organs directly attached to the brain are the eyes. So it's kind of instinctive and natural that what we see is what we believe first. It's what hits our mind first, as opposed to what we hear, for example. So, and there's a lot associated with what's going on in our mind and how that interfaces with this communication we have that creates noise that gets in the way of people understanding what you wanted them to understand. So I began to realize that leaders weren't so much they did not know about conflict skills, the techniques of handling conflict or a difficult discussion or motivating someone. All of those require a different communication approach to connect in a way that people hear it and want to get engaged with it. There are different approaches, different concepts, different things count more in terms of meaning. And I began to realize this, that we don't teach people how to communicate. We teach them how to talk, the language, but we don't teach them the importance that nonverbal communication has when you're saying something. We don't teach them in terms of the fact that some nonverbal cues that you're not aware of are things like proximity. How close am I to you? What does that mean? How does that impact you? Or timeliness. Is this right time for you or not the right time? or how much time do I spend with you, or the frequency of the time I spend with you, all counts in terms of leaders' impact on employees. But they don't seem to realize this. They seem to think they can send a text message and it means the same thing as them being there with the employee. And it does not. And this is what I'm beginning to find in talking with employees. So many of them were saying, yes, smart person, I really like this person, they're great. I just never see them. So, they're not really, I can't connect with them. I don't know who they are or what they're about. And I feel uncomfortable around them when I can't do that. That I heard so many times before. When I ask an employee, I used to run assessments to find out how people thought. And by the way, I can tell you that 80% of the leaders I assessed felt they had better communication with their employees and skills than the employees felt they had. They just nobody ever bothered to assess and tell them that that was the case. So they were just assuming they were connecting, and they weren't. They weren't. And it was evident in their relationship with the employees and the work that came out of that and all the things that we look at for that. Not their fault in my mind. I don't think that I can say I fault that leader. That's the way we train leaders. So that led me to ask some questions. How much money do we spend on development of leaders every year? It's in the billions of dollars every year. How many coaches have we increased? We've increased 30-40% of coaches. I just put something on Substack recently. If you have not read this, you need to go look at it. Okay? You need to go read this article. Yes, it's long, and it's probably 5 or 6, 7 pages long. And it has numbers in it, and they may not be in, I didn't take time to put them into the square boxes, and all that kind of stuff. But you can read it. It's well enough you can see the alignment of the numbers. But basically what it said is we've increased coaches immensely. We're putting more people into leadership development than we ever have. And we are not only not gaining any progress, we're decreasing. We're getting further behind in this area of leaders connecting with their employees. Satisfaction levels of leadership are falling even more. And when that happens, employees are not going to be engaged as much. And if they're not engaged as much, they start getting the feeling that they can go anywhere else. I'm going to start searching for a place where I'm appreciated and needed. And that's where I want to work now. So we have, I've been looking at profiles on LinkedIn and other places where I look at resumes and things like that. There are a lot more people with job histories that are 9 months or a year. May have 10 if they've been employed for 5 years. They may have 9 jobs during that time. And that's because they're out there. They feel okay. That's who they are today. I don't have to work where I am not appreciated. And it used to be where you would be interviewing people, you'd be looking for a history of 5 years. I don't know what they're looking for now because they're doing it by computer, but it sure as hell they're getting a lot of 5-year jobs out. There are less and less people with 5 and 10 years experience. I've worked with people as a leader over my course of 35 years in leadership in mostly billion-dollar organizations, but I worked with people for 10, 15 years. They've developed underneath me. I promoted them out from underneath me into different roles in different places as leaders who are now developing leaders. Um, that's not where we are today. We have a lot of people who are going, hey, I don't have to put up with this shit. I don't care. I'll just go somewhere else. And they're willing to sacrifice. They're not having those same, I need a house, I need a car, I need a family. That's not the same attitude today. That's I think there was something I wrote a while back, or maybe it was a video I did. I think there was a video part of it that are we still seeking the American dream? Does American dream mean the same thing to people today that it meant to me back in the 50s when I was growing up? No, it's different. And we're not waking up to that. Businesses are still being run by a large portion of them being run by people like me who are your older folks, that are still hanging on to the businesses. They're not turning them over today. Even in poor health, they're not turning them over to the younger generation. And so now we have the Gen Zers, and I don't know what the next generation is going to be called. I don't even know who makes up those names, but they are a different breed, and we have a furthering of the gap of understanding, and that has to do with not being able to connect. And that is an interpersonal connection problem. It is a problem where interpersonal being that emotional and psychological sense about yourself and others, being able to sense those emotional intelligence issues. I believe that's the term they use now. Wasn't a term in the 80s. It wasn't even thought of then. Mid to late 90s and 1990s, and then really popular, really leads in this last decade, was emotional intelligence and positive intelligence, the psychological side of the person. That, where that intersects with your actual communication model or process, how two people talk and what's going on when two people talk. When that interpersonal emotional intelligence intersects with the process of communication is where your most powerful potential for connection is. The more deeper you can connect with people, the more trust evolves. The more you have the opportunity to create trust. And that trust is what we base our sense of engagement, our sense of commitment, our sense of value from. And that has been eroding since the mid 1980s when we started putting more into social media and the internet and text messaging and emailing and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to sitting down in that coffee shop in the middle of Brighton, Michigan, and just meeting new people and talking about what's going on and being close to them right across the table from you. You could almost sense their anger, their frustration, or their excitement and their joy. Didn't make any difference. You could sense it. It started turning. You were becoming attuned to them. You were connecting. You were connecting deeper with them. We don't do that so much anymore. In fact, we spend a lot of time telling our leaders to stay away from that because you could get sued over it. And one, we shouldn't be suing over connecting with each other in a deeper way. We should be encouraging it. And yes, no, we shouldn't violate people's rights, or we shouldn't sexually harass them and all those things. But we shouldn't prevent people from honestly hugging somebody and providing a sense of caring and concern with that person by what we call nonverbally haptic or touch, and the proxemics, which is the sense of how far apart we are. that emoji you type where you hug somebody is not producing the same feeling in a person that if I put my arms around, I hold you tight to me and squeeze you and I hug you out of sincere concern and love for you, caring for you. That sets a series of a physical relationship between your mind and your brain that connects with me and what I'm sensing. You're beginning to sense it too, and those same emotions begin to pour through you, and that sense of anger or hurt that you had begins to dwindle away and give way to the caring and concern that I'm providing you while I'm hugging you. You can't get that with emojis. You can't get that with a text message. It isn't the same thing. So we're moving away from connecting, and so what I realize is we have to begin to train people how to communicate, how to interpersonally communicate, how to connect more effectively with other human beings. Okay? And all the rules and standards you got to put up with, do that correctly. That all that needs to play into it also. I'm not saying you can freely go do whatever you want. You got to know when it's okay and it's not okay. You got to know when to keep your distance from somebody also. That's connecting. That's showing them the respect and gratitude that they feel they need. Okay? And a lot of leaders violate that just because they can. They lean over your shoulder if you happen to be someone typing something, and they lean real close to you, behind you on your back, and you're looking over your shoulder. That's a proximity. That's a personal space violation. A person is now not focusing on the typing. They're focusing on they're too close. I don't feel comfortable. So they're not concentrating on this typing. So these are things that we need to teach leaders. We need to teach people how to connect more effectively, to use more emotional intelligence, more empathy, how to connect, what happens when you connect with that, and to begin to build those relationships between employees and leaderships. And when that happens, the organization begins to form as a community, and that community begins to sync as one. And you get a lot more performance, a lot better participation out of that. The Renaissance Communication Leadership Organization is a 17-week program. And I encourage you not, it is a self-directed program now. I finally got it into a self-directed program. It took me a couple of years to figure out how to do this. But this is something you can do on your own at your pace. But you don't want to hurry it, because that week in there gives you the opportunity to practice. You know, people go in, they'll read something, they say, okay, I know it. And they won't practice it. They won't get used to it. They don't understand. You've got to practice it the same way if you're trying to hit a 3-point foul shot. The idea is you have coaches that have you sit there and just do that over and over. And eventually you begin to get this feeling that, you hold the ball a certain way in here, and then your hand goes through, and there's something about the follow through that, if you begin to feel if it hits that way, the ball goes in the basket more frequently. And it becomes a connection you have. You have to do the same thing if you're reading nonverbal communication. If you're in a feedback and an active listening mode, you have to learn to read nonverbal communication to the point where you can attune to what that person is feeling and sensing, so you know when and how to begin to react, and react in a way that begins to help them change and alter the behavior. It is the reason why people spend so much money on leadership. They come back and they can't apply it. they can't apply it in their organization because people just look at them and go, that's just not you. What are you talking about? You're changing. Well, of course they're changing. They're trying to get better. And you're telling them, hey, you're not you. Well, no, I want to be a different person. But because they are not taught how to do this, they go back and just try to apply it. It comes across to the employee as unnatural. They don't connect in getting it done. They don't talk about it. They don't understand how to do it. And consequently, they just stop doing it and they go back to their old way. Only about 18% of the people who come back from a leadership training program actually apply something and behavior changes and benefits the organization. 18%. What kind of return on investment is that? That's no return on investment. And it's been that way for years. I mean, this is studies at Gallup and Harvard Business Review and McKinsey and a bunch of other major organizations that do research. They've seen this for 2 or 3 decades, the same thing. It's not changing. We change up how we teach it. We change up the words. It's kind of like we remold it. It's the same clay. We just remold it. It's the same stuff. And we don't seem to be able to do something different that gets it to come through. Hopefully this is different. The 17 weeks, that week long, you get your introductory video. You get a basic reading assignment that you have to go through. You get video that you look through. You have questions that are asked of you that you have to answer and respond to, all aimed at you trying to understand the material and really grasp what we're saying. Then there are exercises in a workbook that you've got to go out and perform during the week in a real life situation. You've got to observe people. You've got to participate with people. And then you've got to journal it down. What's different? What did I see based on what I learned? And I tried to apply. Did it work? Did it not work? Why didn't it? What do I need to do? Then if you need a little extra help, you can text me. We get together and talk about it. Or you can take the executive course where we're actually in there teaching you a 1-hour course every week on this where we share it. We can put that into a 6-person team and do it for a whole department. And that really brings a lot of learning into the aspect, a lot deeper learning into. Or you can do it yourself. But you have to do these steps because you cannot go to the next module until you complete your assignments, your reading assignments. You've got to do that. You then got to go in and do the questions. You got to answer the questions. You got to look at the video. You got to associate all of that together. Then you have to go out and do the exercises and practice those and journal what you say. Then you can go to the next module. It takes a week to do all of that, to have all those experiences. And the more you do that, the more it's going to begin to sink in. Sometimes you have to go back and read the assignment 2 or 3 times, or watch the video twice or 3 times. And every time you do, you pick up something new. You go, I saw this yesterday when I was working. I went back and I looked at the video. I said, yeah, I see. I'm associating it now. That's what's missing in leadership development, the mentoring aspect of it. We've tried to work that into this course through exercises so that you can do it on your own, at your own pace. If you want to take 2 weeks to do something, you can do it. What you don't want to do is skip it. You don't want to say, I read it, I watched the video, I don't need to go practice it. That you don't want to do. But if you need to take longer, take longer. It doesn't have to be 17 weeks. It can be longer than 17 weeks. But don't pass up that practice aspect of it. That is where the learning really takes place. So in this process, we have this 17-week program that consists of the knowledge, the practice, the journaling, the seeding it in your mind and thinking through it. What I just added to it this week, which I find exciting, is I created what's called an interpersonal communication leadership assessment. It's a 360-degree assessment. It's I think maybe 23 questions long. I have to remember them. And what happens is I put this into a Google Workspace scenario and set it up so I gave you some instructions how you can sit down with your employee and put their mind at ease that you are not going to use those against them, that you really need their help in trying to improve communicating with them and get them engaged in providing you. So there's a situation where your peers take this assessment, your employees take this assessment, the boss takes the assessment, then you take the assessment. You can see the difference between all three of these groups of people. You can see how your boss felt about your communication, how your peers feel about your communication, and how your employees feel about your communication. Now, I used to do this, and they did it with culture and leadership and team, and it was all combined, and you got a 300-page report, and you give it to the executive, and it just overwhelmed them. This is just a very quick dynamic. So each of those questions that are on those assessments are behaviors that I observed. And for years, I observed these behaviors, and people told us these were the behaviors that they had frustrations with. How you create a message and send it to them, how clear, the clarity of that message is, for example, is one dynamic that you look at. When you say something to somebody, is it clear? Is it concise? Does it come across correctly? Do people tend to do the right thing when you say it the first time, or do you have to always kind of come back and correct it? How you send it, your ability to read nonverbal behaviors, active listening. Are you really attuned? Are you comfortable with active listening, or do you tend to interrupt them? There are a lot of people, they start active listening, they'll interrupt it immediately. Because they're starting to think. They're not listening. They're thinking ahead. Like I got to get to the next meeting. I can't be sitting here and listening to this person any longer. Like missing that meeting was going to be more important than trying to help this person. I've seen that happen a lot. So these are all dynamics that came out. So those, if you looked at those 23 questions, those are 23 distinct behavior problems that leaders have with connecting, that prevent them from connecting to other people. And so when you measure those and you see them, we don't get a 300-page report. Basically, I give you a graph and I ask you, what do you see in the graph? And it's amazing I've done this with a few people now. It's amazing. They won't even be looking at that graph 2 minutes and they're already saying, well, I'm getting a much better rating out of my peers and my boss than I got out of my employees. Where do you spend your time? Oh, wow. Yeah, I spend a lot more time talking to those guys than I do my employees. I just figure my employees know what they're doing. If you're not spending time with them, they're not interacting. You're not connecting with them. And I mean, it was great. I didn't need to do a major report. I didn't need to do a lot of, a 300-page paper on, the differences of blind spots. They saw the blind spots in the graph. They saw it. They saw it in less than 2 minutes. They saw one of the most dynamic things that woke them up to the fact that they weren't spending any time with their people. They were concerned about their peers and with the boss, trying to please the boss. And the people were down there saying, I was asking them if there's one thing you could change, that your leader could change, that you would think make a difference, what would that one thing be? Communication. What do you mean by that? We don't ever see him. It was astounding. Saw the graph, just a graph, not a massive report, just a graph. Tell me what you see. Oh, talk to them. These people we seem to be online with each other. That's my peers and my boss. My employees are way off. Oh, wake up call. It was like an alarm went off in their head. It was exciting to see. I loved it. I didn't need to show them. I didn't even tell them anything. I simply said, "What's that saying to you?" And they told me, and I said, "What do you think you need to do about it?" I better get down and talk with them and see what's going on. Might be a good idea. Yeah. So that actual exercise and actual experience in a manufacturing plant, and they began to spend a lot more time together. He spent more time with them, and where he found that to be is not necessarily on the line interrupting with him in the break room. He used to join him in the break room a lot. And that's where he really got to know them and know where they were. He could walk by somebody later, never having said anything to him, and say to him, "You look a little distressed. What's going on?" This was an actual situation he told me about. He said, I was talking, I noticed that, and we'll call her Mary. Mary was having a little problem. I said, "You seem frustrated." She said, "Yeah, we had to go to a new child care center. I'm a little concerned about it." He said, "Well, why don't we'll cover your shift. Go on over there and spend an hour or so. Go around like 10 o'clock when they're in the middle of doing stuff and they won't expect you. Go on over there and make sure you feel comfortable with it. We'll cover it." And he did. And he left her on the clock. And the other employees were not upset about covering for her. They were excited that he cared enough to do that. And she came back and she said, "It looks like it's great." And he says, "Okay, we don't have to worry about that anymore, do we?" And she went back to work. And what that employee felt, what everybody around who saw that felt, and the goodwill that brought to helping them connect with that person and building the trust and the confidence, they begin to feel more valued. Right there, just a little thing like that. Frequency of interaction, emotional empathy and caring and compassion, and a little flexibility. He paid her for an hour she didn't work. Probably got a lot more productivity later. Okay, this course is this. It has a 360-degree baseline assessment you go in with. I provide you all of the e-textbooks you need, plus links to so many more, plus more assessments. And emotional intelligence, they're not the same thing as mine. They don't give you the results of it. They give you the results, but what they're offering is kind of the same thing. Take this test, see, here's where you are. Now come take our program. They have a program too, and yes, they're expensive, but they're well worth it. And if you take their program, you're just going to triple your capacity as a leader to be more effective. So there's some of that. There's videos in there. There's links going into my YouTube channel that I'm broadcasting to right now that has, I don't know, 300 and some odd, 5-6 years of videos on leadership. There's one section in there that has 5 hours on just questions, the importance of questioning and how to ask the questions and the right questions. All free. It's all free. It's right there. It's a lot of time, but It's there, but I'm not promoting them, so nobody knows it's there. Okay. Now, so this program has all of that information, it has links to it, and it is the methodology of the knowledge, the videos that reinforce it, the questions that you tend to have to answer that focus on the key points of that particular knowledge base, the exercises that help you go out and watch it happening in real life and practicing it, and journaling about what you've discovered and how you sense that will work and helping you connect with your people begins to put together the strategy for you transferring what you're learning into changing behaviors of you and your people. That happens, the organization benefits from that. Okay? This is not a leadership development program. It is a leadership transformation program. It transforms you into a better leader, a better human being who can connect to others and help them be more effective. It gets your mind off of thinking, I'm not the marketing expert. I am the person who is trying to help you do your job better and learn more about this job. But to help you make sure everything is going right for you and the whole organization as a whole. I am a leader, not a marketing expert. I'm a leader first. You go from being 70% marketing, 30% supervision and leadership and management to 80% leader, 20% focused on being a marketing expert, 80% leading. You are a leader. Once you step out of that marketing role where you're the expert marketing person, you're now getting others to be experts. That requires a whole different set of things that you need to think about before you accept the position that you want to do that. This kind of development leads into changing your organization and creating a network of community connections. So there's not just you and your employees, there's you and your peers. How is that connection working? You and your boss. And then each of them doing the same. You start building a community of connections. So I'm going to leave this with you. This is not an inexpensive program, but it's not an expensive program for what you're getting. Because you walk away, all these products, the assessment, the books, the exercise results, the questions results, the journaling you do, it all stays with you forever. It's a PDF format, it's yours. And yes, you could take it and give it to somebody else if you wanted to. If that's what you want to do, okay. I'm not going to sue you over that. That's just going to spread the word. You're just going to spread the word. If you're excited enough to give it to somebody else, okay. That's fine. I'm not in it to be the New York Times bestseller. I'm not in it to build another consulting business, not at 80 years old. I'm in it because I would love to see somebody grab this and just make it mushroom into what's there. Would I make some money on it? Sure, I would. But along with this program, this is in a place, and you can get on the website and look this up. This is in a place where I have an affiliate process. So if you happen to take this as a coach or a consultant or a mentor, and you decide you're going to put this into your program, in other words, just pluck this out and you use it, you can do that. And what happens is you keep 50% of the program. So this is a $797 program. If you take that and sell that program and it's helping your client, you're going to get 50% of that $797. And then I keep 50% for me for being the author and designer. 50% is a lot. That's a lot. I am not in it to try to make the money out of it. I'm in it to try to get us connecting again and solve this damn problem of that gap between the leaders and their people. And that would be a legacy for me before I die. That would be a great legacy, to see that gap close because of what we start doing here. And I don't know, somebody might take this and I hopefully expand it and make it much better. That would be great. That would be great too. I wanted to tell you about it because I'm excited about it. Now, it has some kinks in it still. I'm still working out a couple of things on the 360-degree assessment because it's not normal for you to run your own assessment. But there are a lot of people who are not going to be able to have a consulting company do it. They can't afford to have the consulting do it. It's better they at least get an opportunity to try and get that done. And so that means that they may have to do it themselves. So what I have in there is the instructions how you're going to approach your people that will give you a better chance of getting good, transparent, honest information. Will there be people who abuse it? I'm sure. Somebody will go in and try to talk employees into using it, knowing they're going to try to find the one or two they need to fire. I can't stop that. But that's not the purpose. It says it right in the initial statement up front in the disclaimer. This is not used to hire or fire anybody. It's only used for developmental purposes. That's the only way it's allowed to be used. And you're violating my principles if you don't use it that way. But gosh, how many small businesses would be able to afford $797 and get some honest to goodness? And once you have it, I don't know, it's yours. You could probably train your 3 managers for free. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. God, that would be fantastic. Look at how many more leaders who might, help you build 6 more restaurants. We might hire 300 more people. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, I'm gonna let you go. It's late. I could go on this because I'm excited about it. There's a lot, if you get into it and bump into it and it's not working right for some reason for you, let me know. And I will try to help you fix it and get it up and running where it'll run right. It is totally 100% self-directed. When you buy it, it's all yours. And if you follow the process, you'll get the benefit. If you violate the process, you won't get the benefit. And that's not my problem because I do no returns on this. I can't I can't market this and worry about returning what somebody thinks because they didn't do what they should. This is giving you a lot of information, and it allows you to even possibly go out and use it free other places. So I can't afford to sell it and then return money if you want it. So don't buy this unless you're dead serious about doing it. That's just that simple. Because once you buy it, it's yours. You own it, and you need to. But you can go use it. What you can't do is go market it to somebody else. So if you give it to somebody for free and they're doing it, the only thing I would ask is please ask them to send me a review, and my email and stuff will be in there. Here's how. If you like it, there's some things I tell you need to write about what did you learn you didn't know? What did you really like about it? What do you think is going to help you the most? Those kinds of things I want to hear about. I want you to write about. If you didn't like it, I don't, I'm not interested in that. But I'm interested in hearing just the review process that tells me what's strong about it. If I don't hear from you, then I don't know where you are. But I hope you get excited about this. You can find this on my website, and I'll put that on there. It's Victor L Vogel. You got to put the L in there. That's why I capitalize it in the middle. VictorLVogel.com. And that takes you to the distribution. It's where I have my website. Is the distribution is on something called PayHip, and you will go there, and all the books will be there. Now, if you don't want to buy the program, I understand you can't afford it, whatever. The books are the same way. You can buy one of the books or all of the books, or there's a bundle package with a 50% discount set of books. You can buy the information, and the same deal applies. You're going to get a PDF. You're not going to be, it's not like that book, Amazon book thing where, you don't own it. You have it. It's yours, a PDF. If you got a family member or somebody or your boss or somebody you know in business or whatever, and you think they'll benefit from it, you can give it to them for free. That's fine. Just ask them to send me the review, the positive review. I'm interested in the things it's helping you do. I already know what was wrong with it when I wrote it, so that's why I'm not worried about so much what's wrong. I'm really interested in if it's helping you. That tells me a lot more about what I need to do and look at and work on. If there's something you think you would like to add or would make it better, I'm open to that too, okay? That's kind of cool. Maybe we can do that. And if necessary, and you're an expert at it and I'm not in that particular area, then maybe we can collaborate and put it in there and make it work better. But this is pretty good for coaches. Now, if I go in and teach an hour, I have what's called an executive version of this, where I will actually do the hour or 2 hours or wherever it takes instruction once a week for 17 weeks. And I give you another hour during the week where we're doing counseling called office hours. And we're actually doing some counseling where, we can talk about more dynamics, maybe during the week while you were applying something you were struggling with, why it didn't work or worked, and we can work through that and bring it where it needs to be. And if that goes longer an hour, I just the hours. It's booked. It's the time is booked as a project inside it. So I got the flexibility to go longer an hour, or sometimes we can go shorter than an hour. I don't know. but it's all booked in the price of the project. I think that one's $3,000 for the course. So 2 courses you got, 2 choices. All right, I better go. My throat's going. Have a great day.